Chapter 21. How to Deal with Fear and Death. I'm not sure whether to write the following subjectively true story in Oswald Comic Sans or Courier New. I am simultaneously serious, quacky for sharing it, and the story is just unbelievable enough to possibly be deemed fiction.
Comic Sans, I choose you! It all started when I was a teenager, a devout Christian, and my faith, trust, and confidence was in the Assemblies of God's interpretation of the Christian God.
Like most people, I don't really care for pain, so I usually try my best to avoid it when the pain doesn't lead to directly obvious personal gain.
But under the Christian ideology, my fear of death was non-existent. I had regularly been taught to be anxious for nothing, and that the only thing we have to fear is God. And this fear wasn't even be scared of fear. It was the have respect for type of fear. Fast forward about a dozen years to 2021 CE, and I am completely in the dimensionless interpretation of nihilism mindset. For about 2 months, unprovoked anxiety was moderately debilitating for my day-to-day life. The source of this anxiety? Literally nothing. Because of my newfound ability to see nothing and everything, I took the phrase, be anxious for nothing, and started believing it in the wrong way. I feared Zilch in every sense of the word fear. These 2 months of anxiety climaxed to a sleepless night of weird and disconnected thoughts plaguing my conscious mind. But out of nowhere, looking back on it, I could hear Zilch call out to me. And you know what he said? Be intrepid. This word kept on coming at me, and it was annoying because I was exhausted, and it was such an obscure word for me. My conscious mind had little comprehension of what it meant. Then, I obviously know it now, but then I didn't know. I was asking myself, Light Brain, why are you replaying this word that I don't know or understand over and over again? Just go to sleep! I eventually did go to sleep, but I remembered the word intrepid, so I looked it up to see if it even existed as a word. My anxiety vanished upon reflecting upon the meaning of the word. It is an adjective that means to be resolutely fearless, to be dauntless, to be adventurous, often used for rhetorical or humorous effect. It was the perfect word. A combination of courage, determination, and being unafraid. So the moral of the story? It is the passive will of Zilch that you don't worry about anything. To be anxious for no thing. Zilch desire your demeanor to generally be in a state of equilibrium. So do everything intrepidly. For those whose ways are not full of dumbassery, and those whose own ways are filled with thought and intent, theirs is the chillaxing and the great nothingness that comes after.
I've actually figured out since I wrote the story that the actual source of my plaguing not being able to go to sleep was probably because of low blood sugar. I was mixing my R insulin and my N insulin because it was working for several years, but whenever I started my new job, the way my body processed it actually changed what I needed before I went to sleep. So once I stopped mixing my R and my N insulin, my anxiety actually was super chill. It's like I was back to my normal chill self. I still have a little bit of anxiety that I am consciously aware of, being slightly a hypochondriac, but all in all I can deal with it. It's not like these thoughts of, oh, what is wrong with me, are constantly plaguing me and stopping me from doing what I need to do. I'm still capable of doing things intrepidly, if that makes sense. Now, on the topic of death, I am of the opinion that it is better to face the death head on and acknowledge that it is one of the few near objective truths out there. Death is inevitable. I am a type 1 diabetic, insulin dependent since the age of 16, and hasn't made me any closer to death than the average person, since I take good care of myself for the most part. But I've had a few close calls with death, and made me realize that somewhere out in the multiverse, a lot of multiverse twins of mine have already ceased to be. The unlucky ones of the multiverse probability distribution. Luckily so far, I have not met the inevitable fate that has already met these unlucky ones. Otherwise I wouldn't be here making this video. So how should one deal with anxiety and the fear that almost universally stems from an inevitable nullification? First off, one should shake the nerves off and take conscious steps towards fearing no thing. There are many things outside of our control, so for a lot of these things, all you can do is sit back and watch it happen. Sometimes null brings nullification. Too much water, too much food, too little air, too much foreign bodies, too much bacteria or virus, too much of a poisonous chemical. Shit happens. There is nothing you can do about it.
So let Zilch and Nada handle it, Noel. They got you. Rest in them and let them guide your steps. If there are multiple paths that you could follow, and one of them may be significantly more deadly than the other, just take the path that will lead you to the most inner peace. Then take that path with assuredness and follow them to the end. Anxiety comes from overthinking about how ways could go wrong. Don't worry about it. Just do the best you can, in the best way you know how, and they will guide your path.
But other times, the times within our control, we can think before we act and reduce the probability of an early nullification. Plan your steps ahead of time, and you can execute your actions intrepidly. And if you don't have a plan, it is perfectly okay to do as close to nothing as possible.
If it appears that there is no peace in any way forward, do nothing. Wait for a peace to come with a way before you walk it. So by all means, do not go your own way if that way isn't peaceful and mindful. The fool is the one who disturbs the peace and doesn't think before speaking or acting. So organize your way first, and then execute that way with as great a quantity of focus and intrepidness as the Nully Spirit will allow.